And welcome to the Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football. I am Tim Capper. You can find me on X at Repact. That's REPPACT.
And I'm Cliffy D. You can also find me on X over at Cliffy D.
And also, we can't forget to thank our presenting sponsors, SportBuff, for use of the promo code OwlsFlightDeck10 at checkout. You will save 10% off your entire order. So head over to sportbuffshop.com, use the code, save 10%, buy a lot of merch from a lot of different leagues. And as usual, Cliff, don't forget to support local.
When all else fails, always support local.
Little different location for me this week for the show. I'm in the lovely Lac Ouimet over in Mont Tremblant, Quebec. Taking time out from a couple of days here to recharge, relax, take a look at the lake and stuff like that, and just have some fun here. But hey, still have to take time out to talk about the Owls each week because, especially after last week's game, Cliff, and everything that happened. Oh, I could not. I couldn't forget. I couldn't wait to talk about this even more.
Oh gosh, no. I mean, if nothing else, the Montreal Alouettes just provide oodles and oodles of entertainment. I mean, they're keeping the party going. They're providing all kinds of great talking points. I mean, my goodness. I mean, this is just too much fun. Too much fun, as far as I'm concerned. But I'm glad you're able to go and at least take a couple days to relax and enjoy Mont Tremblant, folks. If you've never been to Tremblant, you have to go. It is absolutely fantastic. I mean, and any time of year too. I mean, if you're into skiing, you go in the wintertime. If you're not into skiing, go in the summertime. It's also fantastic. I mean, it is just an absolutely beautiful locale.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff to do here. I will admit. I've been here a couple of times and I still haven't seen everything yet. So, but it's still fun nonetheless. But first thing, obviously this leads into the game itself, Cliff. Because the Alouettes did win 30-20. But let me ask you about this because with the win, the Alouettes set a franchise record for most regular season wins in a row. They're now at 9. They've extended their overall winning streak, including playoffs, to 12. What's your thought on this? Because we keep on hearing different things from we've seen how different people have reacted to the actual streak itself. We've seen how Coach Moss has his take on it, and we saw this week also in the newspaper how Danny Machocha thought about it. Also, what's your take on this, and how Owls fans and how the local media are taking it?
I mean, how do you not be excited? If you're an Alouettes fan, how are you not excited at what you saw? I mean, this party, as I keep talking about, I keep referring to it as a party because it kind of feels like one. I mean, it's just never-ending fun. All the way back to last year, but like you have to go back to September of 2023 for the last time the Montreal Alouettes lost a regular season game. And truthfully, I mean, we're obviously not going to count the preseason game in Ottawa as a loss because we didn't count the other one as a win either. I mean, it's talent evaluation. So take preseason out of the context, but this Alouettes team truly has not lost a game that counted since September 2023. And we're now in July 2024. I mean, that is just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, and that just speaks to the way this organization was built from the top all the way down. I mean, up and down, left and right. This team was built to win. This team was built to keep on winning. And even when you lost important pieces, I won't say replace, but you plug and play others in, and everything keeps going. It's a well-oiled machine that just keeps on running, and it is so much fun. I mean, to be an Alouettes fan right now, you got to be over the moon right now. And for us covering this team, it has been such a joy to see what's going on. And eventually this team will lose a game, and you're going to be disappointed. But man, you got to enjoy this ride while it lasts because it is incredible. Like we're just amazed, absolutely amazed of what we've seen so far, and it really doesn't feel like there's any signs of stopping, to tell you the truth.
It's been brought up quite a bit too that, obviously, I think Coach Moss said, I think Danny Machocha said it this week too. It's like, you don't want to peak too soon. And it's true because we've seen, with the amount of time, how long that we've been around and seeing the Alouettes play, Cliff, is that we've seen the Alouettes go. I think it was under Rod Rust. I think they were 7-0 and they ended up being, or 9-0, and they ended up going, finishing the season at 9-9 under Jim Pop. because
Mhm.
of the infamous losing streak that they had. So,
Yeah.
and obviously they got knocked off in the playoffs, the first round of the playoffs. That's what you don't want to do. You want to be able to peak at the right time. That's what the Alouettes did last year. And I agree with you. There are going to be losses by the Alouettes coming up, it, you know, sometime this season. But the main thing is that if they can replicate what they did last year, you know, it's about, the either way the season's going to be fun. And then again, leading into the playoffs, I know we're a couple months down the line, but still, that's what they need to do, and that's what it really seems that this team is doing, Cliff, because these players have gotten better. They have gotten used to the playbook even more, this season, and it's showing. And it just shows that it just within these first 4 games, because they beat the Toronto Argonauts, who had, uh, an 11-game winning streak at home, snapped by the
Mhm.
Alouettes, and it was a game. I mean, we talked about the game last week. Was the Was the scoreboard really indicative of what the game was this week?
The final scoreboard, no, not at all. I mean, I liken this game that the Alouettes beat the Argos in. It was very similar. After some sober second thoughts, it was very similar to Week 1 versus Winnipeg, where Montreal just dominated, like truly dominated, put points on the board, had an absolutely outstanding defense, just shut down the door, not prevent, and basically didn't allow any touchdowns throughout the game until the waning minutes. Like basically garbage time was when Toronto was finally able to score, just like Winnipeg was able to score a touchdown with a minute and change left in the game. And at that point, the damage was done. There was no coming back from that point. I mean, this game was practically a mirror image. I mean, you had outstanding offense, killer defense, uh, Cody Fajardo and Tyson Philpott connecting for touchdowns. I mean, you had it. This game really truly had everything as far as entertainment value goes. This game was absolutely outstanding, and once again, just speaks to how well this team is built, that they're able to go back into BMO Field, a place where until last November they hadn't won, a meaningful game, to go and win this game and win quite handily, and hand Toronto essentially their first loss of 2024. I mean, that is just simply outstanding, and just yeah, I don't know what else to say other than this has just been an absolutely fantastic ride so far. And as I said before, there's no signs of stopping.
Yeah, and I think probably one of the only differences is that there was only 11,000 people announced at this game. That's sad. I mean, it was such a good game too, and it's just that the last 2 games, the Argos have only drawn 21,000 people for their last 2 games. And by the way, you're talking about what speaks volumes. Let's talk about Cole Loud Speaker uh, having that career day versus Toronto, and it basically really came down to more. It was really more than one play, but everybody's going to remember that one play, especially on 3rd and 1.
Yeah, I feel like everyone, like in every game this year, the Alouettes have had someone just completely go off offensively. Uh, whether it was Tyson Philpott, Walter Fletcher, or as in this case last week, Cole Speaker. I mean, Cole actually has already scored touchdowns this year. He scored one against Edmonton in spectacular fashion. But I mean,
Yeah.
this really felt like the Cole Speaker game in a lot of ways. I mean, he was just all over the field making plays happen. He was just phenomenal, and it didn't matter who was throwing him the ball. He was going to make plays happen. That's what was so amazing, and that's just speaks to the kind of hard work and the kind of playmaking ability this young man has. And really, truly, everybody wants to focus on the offense for the Alouettes. And okay, you got to keep Tyson Philpott in check. Good luck. You got to keep Julian Grant in check. Again, good luck. There's so many options right now, and you look at some of the receivers on this team, and yeah, a lot of them have had breakout games, big time energy games, and other guys are just sort of waiting in the wings, just waiting for, like, you get the feeling it's going to happen for them eventually. It's just, it almost feels like Cody's kind of playing duck duck goose with okay, who's going to be next? Who's going to be the next big playmaker today? And it's just already did Tyson, already did Fletcher, Cole. It's you, duck duck goose. That's really what it feels like. So this upcoming game against Calgary could be somebody else entirely, or he goes back to those guys. Who knows? But it's really incredible the way that Cody Fajardo is able to make the most of his offensive weapons and make them shine, make them look like superstars. I mean, that is, you love to see it. What else can I say other than you love to see it?
Yeah. As I said, the Alouettes did come away with a 30-20 win over the Toronto Argonauts, extending their winning streak. They're now 4-0 on the season. Some of the funny things that we had talked about on during Flight Deck Live that we're going to bring up tonight. I mean, it's first and foremost. I mean, you look at how this team played. I mean, it's again, as you said at the beginning, it was the type of game where it really was. I would probably call it a slobber knocker, because I mean, 30-20. You know, again, like you said, it really wasn't indicative to what it was. Especially with another last minute touchdown, which we hate to give up. And as we saw in the post game show, the Owls post game show, players hated it. They wanna do better. If they can hold a team without a touchdown throughout a game clip, that's what they wanna do, and you could see from that post-game, those post-game interviews, it really did frustrate them.
Yeah, and I'm sure Noel Thorpe too is kind of cringing as well at the idea of having to give up yardage and points in that fashion. But at the same time, you don't want to do anything stupid. You want to make sure you get preserve that win. And sometimes, in a way, just to bleed the clock, sometimes you got to let the opponent get yards on you, or maybe even score that garbage time touchdown. And simply put, they slammed the door on this team a long time ago. And, it's easy to look back and say, well, okay, let him have this, let him have that. But Noel Thorpe doesn't strike me as that type. He doesn't strike me as the type to want to give the opponent anything. And he's drilled that into his players as well. As you see, the disappointment and frustration of, I can't believe we let those guys score on us. Like, it was just, it's a great attitude to have, and one you expect your defensive unit to be able to carry with them. They want to be able to say, yeah, we completely shut them out. We slammed the door on them. We held them to field goals. And that's really what it was. Throughout this game, the only person scoring any points for Toronto was Liram Hairulahu.
Mhm.
And that's what you want to see. Just like, again, week 1 against the Blue Bombers, it was only Sergio Castillo that was only able to score points against the Alouettes. And that's what you want to see. You want to see this defensive unit just absolutely manhandle their opponent. And by and large, they've been doing that so far this season.
Yeah, and I know we usually give props to the offense right away, but since we were talking about it now, well, let's talk about the defense and how well they did this game, Cliff. Because as you said, they've just been playing lights out. I mean, they have just it's like they never stop playing from the Grey Cup. It's like, they just continued, even though it's slightly, a few different people here and there, plug and play type of thing. But this defense has played really well this season, and again, just like they did this week versus Toronto.
And let's not forget, this defense has also suffered its fair share of losses early on this season. I mean, losing guys like Tyrell Richards, Reggie Stubblefield, Wesley Sutton, who is only now getting back into the swing of things. I mean, to not have him to start the season, that would normally be a killer. But, I mean, this Alouettes defense just keeps on going. They replace, they reload. And you've got guys coming in that have just absolutely, like, new guys have come in and just absolutely set the tone almost immediately. Guys like Isaac Adeyemi Berglund has been absolutely outstanding, on the defensive line. Bryce Cosby replacing a Reggie Stubblefield, which is a very tall task, and has been doing an absolutely outstanding job of doing so. Kebianento still looks like the Kebianento that helped this team win a Grey Cup, which is something else you absolutely love to see. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Jeffrey Conte-Arcu, the Alouettes' first-round draft pick this year. He had 2 monster sacks against the Argos, and just looked like a world beater. I mean, that for a raw rookie to come in like that. I mean, someone who has been playing 4-down football for the past, I think, 5 to 6 years, easily, coming into this, into the professional level in a Canadian game, which he admittedly has not played very much. And he does not look out of place at all. I mean, he's very fortunate to have someone like Tyrese Beverett kind of showing him the ropes a little bit, and Darnell Sankey. But, I mean, he does not look out of place at all as a linebacker. Like, he's just been a force, an absolute force on this team. And, again, just speaks to the message that Noel Thorpe is delivering. And these guys are buying in 100%. And you see it on the field each and every week. I mean, this defense bends a lot, but they truly don't break. And as an Alouettes fan, you have to be excited. You have to be thrilled seeing that. I mean, yeah, scoring points is cool, and even interceptions and pick sixes, those are great too. You want to see points put on the board, but when the defense is just able to simply dominate, and that's what this Northrop defense has done, is simply dominate week in and week out. It is just so much fun to watch. Like I'm sitting on the couch watching these games, and I'm just like, yeah, like just absolutely excited at just watching a potentially great drive by the opposition just snuffed out. And truthfully, as exciting as touchdowns and points on the board are, I'm happy with a good, strong defensive effort, especially when you just absolutely stymie the opponent. I mean, that just, it makes a good thing even better as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and also here to talk about, you're talking about Cosby. I mean, he was so close in getting Dukes. He had one of those type of Reggie Stubblefield type of plays where he comes off the end and he was unblocked. But Duke just got the ball away right at the last second. But the thing is, and this is what I like to see, especially with this type of player, he stopped. He didn't actually, he knew when to stop and not cause that penalty that would give the Argos the extra yards to continue the drive.
Yeah, and I think that's where Toronto too just had a hard time, was just discipline. They just couldn't stay disciplined for the most part. I mean, they just, when you think they got something going that they can think of, they end up with a penalty that just knocks them back, and it's got to be frustrating to do that. And you always too, whoever wins the turnover battle typically wins the game. You could also say the same thing about penalties as well. Whoever stays the most disciplined typically is going to win this game, and that's something that the Alouettes have been doing a very good job of for the most part, is keeping their cool, not getting baited by stupid extracurriculars or anything like that. Like, they've pretty much kept their poise for the most part. Yes, they do take penalties, and yeah, a couple of them are kind of head scratching a little bit, but by and large, the discipline on this team has been nothing short of outstanding.
Yeah, Toronto had 11 penalties for well over 100 yards. The Alouettes, kept it under 100. So I mean, they've been very disciplined, very very disciplined, and it also goes to the fact too when it comes to talking about lines. Is that look at the O line too? Is like last year, and we've brought this up a couple of times already in the past couple of shows. Is that the O-line is doing an absolutely amazing job in keeping Cody upright, even though the back of his jersey this week really didn't, he was a giant. He was a Tide commercial by the end of the game, but they're keeping him upright, and that's what they need to do. But I don't know if it's concerning that how much he got hit this past week, but just seeing how well they were able to keep him upright, and as I said, and totally it's making people forget what Cody went through last year because, we were leading. I think at one point Cody had given up over, it was like 50 sacks and however many games it was. I had to go back and check the stats again. But yeah, the Alouettes, I think, are among the league leaders when it comes to fewest sacks given up.
Yeah, and I think PFF Pro Football Focus, for the past couple of weeks, they've been praising the Alouettes O-line as far as protecting their quarterback, giving him the time and space to be able to do what he does best, whether it's throw the ball, hand it off, or just tuck it and run. I mean, like, Cody's able to extend the ball, extend the play, simply because he's being given the time and space to do what he does best. And there doesn't seem to be any weak links on this offensive line. I mean, as we've talked about Josh Donovan, the rookie, who's hasn't been perfect. He's made a couple of rookie mistakes, but by and large, this offensive line has done a fantastic job in not just keeping Cody upright, but also creating lanes for the running backs and providing that initial protection so that Cody can make those checkdowns and screen passes and everything that he does to move the ball forward. It takes a village, as they say. And I mean, this village right now, I mean, it has just been absolutely outstanding. I mean, I try to think, is there any sort of weak spot really on this team? And at the risk of sounding like a homer, I really don't see any glaring weaknesses. I mean, not perfect. Let's not get it twisted. This team is far from perfect. But as far as like any glaring weaknesses, something where an opponent can just pick on and just bring the Alouettes down to earth, I'm not seeing a whole lot of that. Like, I mean, yes, mistakes are going to happen no matter what. But I mean, as far as overall production goes, as far as what this team is able to do, both offensively and defensively, I'm not finding a lot of fault. I'm not like finding a lot of weakness here. I mean, this truly is a team built to win.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously everything states, everything is, talked about when it comes to the stats for the game itself. But again, I want to push back on them a little bit more than we normally do, Cliff, because there really were some standout stuff this week by the Alouettes, and you know, uh, this has been deemed, that one particular drive. And then we gotta talk about that one particular play again. I mean, oh my God, it's happened once again. But let's talk about that play where a CFL goat called this one of the best plays that he's ever seen in CFL history. Drives in CFL history.
Yeah, it's funny. Like the term "the drive" can be applied to so many in the Canadian Football League. I mean, you can even go back to the drive that won the Grey Cup for the Montreal Alouettes as being the drive when you talk about
Mhm.
this team. But in the third quarter, the Alouettes put together a drive that, simply put, was cinema. There's no other way to describe this drive other than absolute cinema. And it had everything. I mean, Cody was able to move the ball. He was finding receivers. Uh, just when things looked grim, like on a 2nd and 20, what does he do? He reaches into the bag of tricks and pulls out an absolute stunner with Jeshuan Antwi, brings back the onside punt, which a lot of people should have seen this coming. If you take a look, Marc-Olivier Brouillette on his Twitter account talks about how the Argos, before that had happened, had taken a timeout because they saw Antwi lining up on the line of scrimmage and like, oh, it's coming. And the Alouettes were like, no, what are you talking about? And then just ended up flipping the script on them, flipped the formation, and just instead of going wide out on it, he just took the field side, recovered his own punt again. This is now, this is the third time he's attempted this, and the second where he's been successful at it. And the entire CFL universe lost their collective poop, going wild. I mean, if you love this play, you were in heaven. You're like, oh my God, they did it again. I love the CFL. This is so awesome. If you don't like this sort of play because clearly you don't have much fun in your life, then you're like, oh, this is so stupid. It makes the team look Bush League. It makes the league look Bush League, blah, blah, blah. This should be outlawed. Nah, man. You know what? It's in the rule book. Learn the rule book. You don't like this play. I've said it before, and I'll say, if I've said it once, I've said it a million times. You don't like this play, defend better. If you're a defensive coordinator, now you have no choice but to anticipate this. You know the Alouettes can pull this off at any moment. And you know what? Any other team can pull this off too. Let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, this play is not exclusively designed for the Montreal Alouettes to use. Any CFL team, if they're willing to put in the time and effort to pull it off, they can do it too. This idea that you don't like the onside punt, it's part of the fun. It's part of the drama, because again, if it doesn't work, you look kind of stupid. But when you pull it off to perfection, like Jeshuan Antwi has been able to do, not once, now twice, my God. And yeah, just once again, fresh set of downs, keeps this drive going, and this drive ends in absolutely spectacular fashion. On 3rd and 1 on the hold on a second, at the Toronto 44-yard line, 3rd and 1. Caleb Evans comes in for the quarterback sneak, as we expect him to do. He's not perfect at it, but 9 times out of 10.
And it's the Caleb Evans who had been stopped earlier in the night on their very first drive on a 3rd and 1.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Earlier, as I said, 9 times out of 10, he gets that first down, just plunging forward. But earlier in the evening, he was unsuccessful. That was time number 10. But once again, they line up on the goal line stand. Well, not on the goal line, but on the 44-yard line. Caleb lines up, looks like he's about to plunge, but sees Cole Spieker out of the corner of his eye. He knows what's going on. Drops back with a fadeaway jumper of a pass. Yeah. Cole Spieker catches everybody with their pants down, and all the way untouched into the end zone for a touchdown. I mean, we talked about Cole Spieker having an absolutely fantastic night. this was the cherry on top. This was to end this drive in absolutely spectacular fashion with points on the board. And that's, again, the first time that this has happened where the onside punt has led to points on the board. So for all you haters out there that don't like
you
it,
took the words right out of my mouth.
well, then I'll let you I'll let you expand upon that. But yeah, for all you haters out there that say this play does nothing, well, listen, it's not. It's all simply a matter of what you're able to do with the opportunity that's presented before you. And sure enough, the Alouettes, with a fresh set of downs, were able to keep the drive going, move just that much closer. But once again, reaching back into their bag of tricks and pulling out the fadeaway jumper pass, just from start to finish, that drive was an adventure. It was an epic adventure. And how does, if you're an Alouettes fan, how do you not love that sort of creativity? How do you not love Anthony Calvillo and Jason Moss putting together an absolute chess match when it comes to drives like that? It is simply outstanding. I mean, there's simply no other words to describe it.
It's like Shade's the Grey Cup drive, the Grey Cup winning drive. People will remember that one too. People will remember this one also. I mean, it's and you know, it happened to be with a Cody run and a Cole catch, a fade, almost like a fade. Another fade pass from Cody to Cole. So I mean, but yeah, I mean, we're talking about this play, and I think to me, I am now calling this feigned outrage, Cliff, because that's really what it is from some of these fans. It's like they're making it sound like as if it's every week, and honestly, from what I have seen in local media and the other media podcasts that I've been listening to online, is that they're all most of them are in favor of this play itself. And just for quick reference, it's Rule 5.4.14. So you want to go into the CFL's rule book, it's there, and you can read it yourself. But I think what's funny, Cliff, is everybody keeps talking about, I said, oh, they want to ban it. It's being used too often, and blah blah blah. Okay, here's the real deets here, people. The Alouettes in 2023 tried it 3 times out of 953 offensive plays for it's for 0.003%. That's it. And you're complaining about this play. And they didn't score a single point on those 3 plays. 2 were successful, 1 was not. And obviously the only 6 points that they scored is the one this year.
Yep.
It's like, come on. You're really bitching about a play that's only been run that percentage of times in a single year? Out of 953 plays, you're complaining about 3 plays?
Yeah.
Stop.
I think what it is nobody likes being embarrassed, right? And I think that's really what it was every time where the Alouettes have been able to pull it off successfully, which, by the way, they have now pulled it off against every single Eastern Division team. The first time was against Ottawa last year, in Ottawa. The second time was at Percival Molson Stadium against the Hamilton Tiger Cats during the last regular season game. And now in 2024, and now in 2024 against the Toronto Argonauts. I mean, if I'm a fan of those teams, I'd probably pissed off and embarrassed that you got caught flat-footed, simply put. And clearly, your defensive coordinator didn't know that, didn't plan for it, can't anticipate it. Doesn't matter. That's their job. That's what they're supposed to do. And again, the Alouettes just put everybody on notice. Say, oh, by the way, we know how to do this play, and we're not going to tell you when we're going to bust it out, but you better be ready. And if you can't defend it, that sounds like a you problem.
Yeah, I think I sent you this stat. I didn't put it on socials, but I think the least amount of yards that the Alouettes have tried it, I think was 2nd and 18 or 2nd and 16. I'd have to check my text back to you, but I think it was something like that. But the last 2 times they've tried it has been 2nd and 20. So you can try it at any time. That's the thing. It's just a matter of when to do it. And Coach Moss and AC have figured out when to run this play. Not necessarily when it means the most, but when it means the most in order to get them a new set of downs to try to continue that drive.
And to your point, okay, so the 4 times that it was attempted by the Alouettes since 2023, it was 2nd and 16, 2nd and 18, and then, 2 times at 2nd and 20. So, I mean, you got to make it worth your while, obviously. If you're 2nd and very long, that's when you pull it out. And again, if you see Jeshua Antwi on the line of scrimmage. Okay, well that's a clear sign that could happen. But hey, Cole Spieker was the other one who was able to do that play. So
Exactly.
yeah, if you want to gang up on Ansui and try and stop him from pulling that off, okay. How long does it take for Cody Fajardo to call an audible? Seconds. And I'm pretty sure he's got that lined up. If he sees that everybody's all of a sudden now paying attention to Antwi, I'm pretty sure if he wants to pull that play off again, he knows Cole Spieker can do it. I'm sure the other receivers have been learning and practicing on how to do it. I mean, we're not at every single practice, unfortunately, so we can't see just how much this play is being practiced. But obviously, it's being practiced enough that this element of surprise can definitely happen at a moment's notice. And once again, if you're a defensive coordinator and you're not anticipating that, if you're not prepared for it, your defenders aren't prepared for it, that's on you. That's not on the Alouettes. The Alouettes are simply using a rule that's been in the book for decades upon decades. And you have to give Jason Moss a ton of credit for having the cojones to be able to pull that off. And for nobody to see it coming makes it even sweeter. I mean, you're now at the point though that as soon as you see Joshua Antwi on the line of scrimmage, okay, I think I know. Oh, they have to right away. Now you got everybody scrambling, and I think they even called a timeout because in anticipation of that. And you still fell victim to it. So once again, that's on you.
Yeah, and nobody knows what the play call is.
As they say, don't hate the player or players, hate the game.
Nobody knows what the play call is either. It may be, it may be one of those words within the play call itself, like for Peyton Manning, maybe it's the word Omaha. Who the hell knows?
Maybe it's hamburger. Maybe it's Nebraska. Maybe it's Justin Bieber. Like it could be anything.
Exactly.
And
no,
again, that's the thing. There's no law that says you have to name the onside punt anything. Even so one of these days we're going to find out what the play call is and what of course we're not going to tell you folks what it is because
no way.
But we got to find out. We next time we talk to Joshua Nance, we're going to have to try and get it out of him. But
it's how we treat everything else, and everybody knows that if we hear something post game about a player that isn't out there physically, hasn't been said officially, like we've had in the past, we're not going to say. We're going to keep it as is, and we're going to continue with the upper and lower body injuries. We're going to go with exactly what the team has said. So there's no reason to tip the hat of anything for the Alouettes. So, or the media doesn't,
as the kids say.
No other media does that either. No other media does that either unless it's actually said specifically, officially from the team. So,
but still, I think just for our own knowledge, I'd be fascinated to know what gets called. When Cody lines everybody up and says, "Okay, we're doing this. Here's the call." I'd love to know what that is. But
it's like the Tyson play. We finally figured out in the Grey Cup what that Tyson play was. We found out what the play call was.
Mm-hmm.
Just go back into our history and you'll see what it is. I think I even put it on social media.
So
we know what the play call was. That's the cool thing about it. Plays change every year. That's the thing. They can be called something else. It can be just a slight change of one word. So let's give these guys the due that they deserve here, Cliff. We're talking about Cody Fajardo. He was 33 of 41. And I think it's the most attempted pass that he's shown in quite a while that I can remember. 80% completion rating, 284 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, an interception that really should not have been thrown in the end zone. It was into double coverage for one, but then also, as we saw in the replay, there was another Alouettes wide receiver wide open.
KJG was all by himself, and that would have been the perfect time to give him a hometown touchdown because you knew that a lot of people showed up for KJG, and I think it would have absolutely made his night to be able to score a touchdown in front of his friends and family. And he came damn close too. There's another play too where it just hit him in the hands, and he just wasn't able to come down with it and survive contact with the ground. That sucked for him. My heart went out to him for that one. But on the interception, that was ill-advised, shall we say. I don't know what Cody was trying to prove with that throw. I mean, one can make the argument that, Tyson Philpott is so money that, you throw him anything and he'll catch it. But, I mean, double coverage, and it was an underthrown ball. It was just, again, especially when you look back, it's easy to say after the fact, but yeah, you look and you see that KJG just broke out a different route altogether. He was all by himself. That could have been a tutty right there. Instead, Cody gets picked, and well, it was one of the few errors he made that evening.
Yeah, exactly. Caleb Evans went 2 of 3 for 49 yards. Obviously, that one touchdown to Cole Spieker, which was 44 yards.
He also
Receiving
ran in the
one.
touchdown.
Yeah, oh, that's true. Yep, I was going to get to the rushing portion, but you are
Oh,
correct, sir. You are
so
correct. Cole Speaker led the team with 113 yards, 8 targets, 8 receptions for, and that one touchdown. Then you also had Tyson Philpott, 5 receptions for 90 yards and also a touchdown. And Reggie White Jr., 3 receptions, 48 yards. David Dallaire, 3 receptions, 11. Walter Fletcher, 4 for 14. Charlton Rambo back into the thick of things. It's nice to see. 22 yards on 4 receptions. And KJG had 6 receptions for 33 yards. And James Letcher had a single reception for 2. Here's one of the things that we talked about a little bit on Flight Deck Live, Cliff, is that the running game itself was pretty abysmal this past week. And, this is Walter Fletcher is a guy who is the one. He is, he is still in the top 10, I think, as far as I know, in the when it comes to rushing in the CFL. But, this week he wasn't the leading rusher. It was Cody Fajardo. Grand total, the Alouettes, Cliff, had 25 yards rushing, and that was on 12 attempts. I understand that Toronto is a different team when it comes to the running game, but something seemed to be off. And thank goodness for the defense, and thank goodness for the passing game. This game could have been a lot different, but this is something that the Alouettes need to really look at, I think, and they're going to improve on this quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, I mean, you got to give all the props to the run defense for the Argos. They definitely came to play. I mean, I think they're one of the reasons why this game was an absolute massacre, I mean, despite what the scoreboard had said initially.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Fletch, we know, is capable of breaking one off and just being absolutely outstanding. But he was definitely held in the check, and that's just how it goes at times. I mean, sometimes you're able to find the hole and make things happen. As we talked about, this defensive line has done a pretty good job this year of being able to do that for the running, whoever the running back is. As soon as he gets the rock, he's usually able to find the lane and make some stuff happen. But this defense really did come to play for the Argos. I mean, they basically bottlenecked and kept Walter Fletcher honest throughout the evening. I mean, it's not something I'm going to hit the panic button on just yet as far as this running attack goes for the Alouettes. But I mean, it happens, right? I mean, you're not going to have every night's not going to be like it was in Edmonton for Walter Fletcher, unfortunately. I mean, I'm sure you'd be thrilled if that was the case, but just it was one of those nights where the game was won in the air. And simply put, Cody Fajardo was able to throw the ball better than he was at handing it off or running it himself. I mean, which you still cringe every time he does it, because okay, the guy can take a hit, and he took several hits as he was going down. And to the point where his white uniform almost, I was wondering if it was like Flashback Friday and he was trying to remember when he was a Saskatchewan Rough Rider. There was so much green and white on his back. But, that's just...
He also had to sit out 3 plays because of one of those hits too. So that was kind of cringy because that was just the beginning of the second half. And we're like, now what?
Yeah, and I mean, Caleb Evans is still able to come in and keep things going, but at the same time, he looked like someone who was coming in relief. I think that's a fair assessment to say. I mean, he wasn't not people were expecting him to just light it up, but at the same time, it didn't really feel like he had a chance to really get into a rhythm. And other than that outstanding fadeaway pass to Cole Spieker for a touchdown, I mean, he just kept it as simple as possible. And maybe that was by design, like maybe not to overthink things and just hope that Cody's able to get back in there after that minimum 3 plays that he has to sit out. Maybe that was simply the case, was, okay, don't do anything flashy. Don't try to be a hero. Just, hand the ball off if you need to, or, keep it yourself and try to gain a few yards. But yeah, I mean, Caleb definitely just looked like someone that was in place of somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and that's one of the things too. I'm very surprised that it hasn't been Davis Alexander coming in as the twos. We've talked about this before too. What we saw specifically in camp. Obviously, it's not a true, a true indication of what's going to happen during the regular season. But I'm very surprised that it has been Davis coming in as the number two. But we don't know the reasons behind that. Maybe something that we needed to ask Coach Moss about if we can get an answer from him. But again, he has faith in who he's bringing in, and Caleb did look a little bit off, but I mean, it's all in all, luckily Cody was only out for 3 plays.
Well, and once again, you can question the methods, but you can't argue with the results. And simply put, the Alouettes were able to put points on the board, whether it was Cody Fajardo throwing the ball or Caleb Evans throwing the ball or keeping the ball himself and pushing it into the end zone. Points are still being scored. So I guess you can't really complain too much about it. You can sit and question about it, as I said, but in the end of the day, they did what they needed to do. They put points on the board, and this team is now 4-0.
Yeah, exactly. Any other things you want to talk about before we get to the preview of this week's game versus the Calgary Stampeders?
As I mentioned, this was Toronto's first loss of the season. But man, one of the things I was thinking about was, how is this Toronto team going to be this year with Chad Kelly being suspended for at least the first 9 games? I tell you what, Cameron Dukes, by and large, has looked pretty good. But man, did Montreal make him look average? I mean, he still got a couple of nice plays in, but I mean, he just looked mid. I mean, and to me, that just speaks to just how incredibly powerful this defense is. Like, to take someone who's looked very solid. I mean, I like, to the point where I was actually kind of concerned. Like, okay, well, let's not sleep on this Cameron Dukes guy, because he seems to be able to find receivers. He's able to put points on the board, but yeah, this defense, by and large, just made him look average at best, and pedantic at worst. I mean, and that's not a knock on him. It's just, simply put, I mean, heck, he didn't even score the one touch. He didn't even throw for the one touchdown. It was Byron Scott that ended up throwing for that garbage time touchdown for the Argos. So I mean, Cameron Dukes was basically held off the scoreboard. I mean, he was able to move the ball pretty well and drive, but most of those drives just ended up in field goals for the Argos. It really does speak to just how well this defense has been playing, and how they managed to make good quarterbacks look mid and bad quarterbacks look terrible.
Yeah, and obviously with Toronto coming in with the next 2 weeks, I'm not mistaken, it's going to be interesting to see what type of changes that they do make themselves when they do play the Alouettes again, but this time over Percival Molson. Want to remind everybody that we are on social media. You can find us everywhere. We'll let you know about where we were on X earlier, but for us, the Flight Deck, you can find us over at the Alouettes FL Deck. You can find us on Facebook over at Alouettes Flight Deck Pod, Instagram, and YouTube over at Alouettes Flight Deck. Don't forget, over on YouTube, you can find not only the audio version and the video version of the podcast, but you can also find our companion show, Flight Deck Live, which is our post-game show after every Alouettes game. And you will be seeing us come rain or shine, because I've seen the forecast, Cliff, but you will be seeing us rain or shine post-game versus the Calgary Stampeders over at Percival Molson Stadium. Also, if you want to catch all of our archive, you can do so by heading over to alouettesflightdeck.ca. And if you want to rep the merch of the podcast, head over to flightdeckgear.ca and grab a couple of items that are there, from anything from our very popular Cartoon Bird 56 T-shirt to anything else that we have on the website. So again, that's over at flightdeckgear.ca.
Yeah, and again, folks, make sure that you're subscribed. If you're following the podcast on X, that's fantastic. Make sure you get that notification. Especially if you're on YouTube, hit the notification bell. Make sure you're subscribed. That way, when we do go live with Flight Deck Live, you'll get notified right away. You'll be able to have access to all of our stuff almost instantly. So make sure you're part of the flight crew. Make sure you're with us on this absolutely crazy adventure that is the Montreal Alouettes 2024 season.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying to find what to see. Obviously we have like it's more of an interesting story coming in this week with the Calgary Stampeders, Cliff, because yes, it's not only the Calgary Stampeders that are coming in, but it's also going to be for the very first time that we're going to have two brothers technically go head to head versus each other.
Mm, yes, indeed. The Philpott brothers are finally going to go face off against one another. Uh, as we've discussed on multiple occasions, Tyson's twin brother Jalen was injured all of last year, so he really didn't get a chance to showcase what he's able to do. Is finally getting that opportunity now in 2024, and yeah, it's going to be very exciting. It will be both Philpott brothers playing against each other for the first time as professional football players, which is going to be very exciting to see. Tyson's going to want to remind everybody why he is arguably the best Canadian receiver, if not the best receiver in the Canadian Football League right now. And
Mhm.
Jalen's not too far behind either, and he's going to want to try to show his brother up as well. So it's going to make for a very fun evening over at Percival Wilson Stadium this Saturday.
Yeah, looking at the odds too. Actually, it's the first time I've actually seen the odds this time, Cliff. It's the Alouettes are currently favored by 9.5 points. That's interesting. That's an interesting line for sure. I was not expecting the line to be that high, even though they are playing at home versus at Percival Molson.
Well, let's not forget too that historically Calgary has never fared very well coming in here. Doesn't matter
That's
who the
true.
quarterback is, but Calgary just doesn't seem to be able to get it up for the Alouettes as far as being ready to go. And a lot of people have kind of blamed the Montreal nightlife and nonsense like that. But I mean, in the past few years, like the team comes in the day before. So I mean, I don't think they really get a chance. Like they would be foolish, as far as I'm concerned, to go and enjoy the nightlife, if you will, however you want to phrase it, because you're there to do a job, right? I mean, it's supposed to be a business trip, so maybe hitting up Crescent Street and the gentlemen clubs may not be the wisest counsel for the Calgary Stampeders. But I don't know what it is, but Calgary, by and large, doesn't win very often in Montreal. And when I look at this Calgary lineup, I have to admit, I thought they were going to be bottom feeders this year. I just didn't have faith in Jake Mayer as quarterback. And he's been pretty solid, actually. I mean, now let's not forget, he's also played Nepeg and Hamilton. And let's be honest, anybody's going to look absolutely outstanding against those teams. But he's definitely going to be tested. I mean, I hope he sees what the Alouettes have done to opposing quarterbacks this year, and I hope he's done his homework for his sake, because he's been pretty solid this year. But I don't think he's faced a defense quite like he has against the Montreal Alouettes.
The Alouettes are currently the last 10 games at Percival Molson. The Alouettes are 7-3. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it's sometimes a lot of these Western teams do have a hard time coming and playing in Montreal, no matter how good or bad Montreal seems to be. That they just don't seem to be playing well. And you're talking about probably one of the keys to the game this week versus the Alouettes for the Stampeders is Rene Paredes, because what a kick this week, man! Just shy of the CFO record, him launching that 60-yard field goal this past weekend.
That was Sergio Castillo, actually.
Sorry, Sergio Castillo. Yes, sorry. Yeah.
But Rene Paredes did notch the overtime winner. So I mean that the guy I think he's perfect this year. And it's funny because normally he starts off kind of slow, but then once he gets into a groove, he's almost impossible to stop. So we could see another instance too of last year. Remember last year it was David Cote versus Rene Paredes, like field goal kicks, and aside from the Cabianento pick six, that was the only tutty that was scored in that game. I mean, we could be possibly seeing another game like that if this defense of the Alouettes defense decides to take the night off, or Calgary maybe is fooling everybody as to how truly explosive their offense can be. I mean, this team
Or the
does have
weather.
weather too. I mean,
Yeah.
if I recall, was it not raining cats and dogs when we did Flightdeck Live last year after the
Yep.
Calgary game?
Oh, yeah, we did it from our mobile unit. That's right.
We had no choice. I mean, it was just pouring, like literally pouring down. So I mean, weather could be a factor as well. But I mean, I look at this Calgary team, and yeah, they've got some studs. They've got some absolute weapons. But I mean, I'm still not 100% sold on Jake Mayer, to tell you the honest truth. I mean, he's been good, but put him up against this Alouettes defense, and I have a feeling it's going to be just like Zach Caleros, Drew Brown, Cameron Dukes, Claude Bethel Thompson. He's going to end up looking very ordinary against this defense. I just, from what I've seen of Jake Mayer so far, solid against the bottom feeding teams, but put him up against what I feel is an elite defense, and I think it's be has potential to be a very, very different story for the Calgary Stampeders.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. So many different variables for this game, and I actually too am looking forward to the Philpott versus Philpott storyline because I'm sure that's going to be talked about.
Yeah, I think also too
quite a bit.
You cannot ignore Reggie Bagleton. I mean, that guy is simply in a league unto himself. I mean, that's one saving grace for the Calgary Stampeders is they have Reggie Bagleton playing for them, and he's one of those guys that could easily rack up 2, 3, 4 touchdowns, no problem. And simply put, if this defense just lets up a little bit, a veteran like Bagleton is going to take advantage of it. Markin Michel, too, has been able to put points on the board for Calgary this year and look pretty darn good doing so. I mean, couple that with Jalen Philpott coming in, hyped to play his brother for the first time ever. I mean, yeah, this Calgary offense has a chance to do some really good stuff, but I mean, this defense will come to play.
Didn't you find out last week that at the last game we were speaking with Tyson post game? Aren't his parents going to be at this game to see both of them play?
Yeah, I think I don't know if the entire family will be at this game, but I would imagine yes, simply because this truly is the first time these two brothers are going to be playing against each other in a professional setting. So, I mean, I fully expect the entire Philpott clan to be at Personal Molson Stadium. And it's going to be tough because you want to cheer everybody on, right? You want to cheer both on, but, like, are they going to have those, like those Franken jerseys where it's like half Alouettes, half Stampeders, and still say Philpott on the back? But I don't know. It could be interesting. So...
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying. It should be fun. It would be nice to see his father again. We saw him a couple of times during the playoff run last year or so, and at Grey Cup. But
yeah, CFL legend cool. Corey Philpott is their dad. In case you folks didn't know, and definitely an absolute pleasure to speak with as well. So yeah, I like you, Tim. I hope we get a chance to say hello to him after the game as well. It would be awesome. Hopefully we get to talk about your son's. Plural, did fantastic today. Not just one son, but 2 sons.
Exactly.
But not too. But we don't jail him to be too fantastic. He can be good, but not too good. Tyson has to be a little bit better, and I think he'll be motivated. Just motivated enough. Like, okay, I'm show you. Exactly.
There are not very many transactions for the Alouettes over the last couple of days. It just really has been over the last day or so before we did the show this week. KD Davis Cliff was added from the practice roster to the game roster. Crevon LeBlanc was actually added to the 6-game injured list.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember what they a foot. Was it a foot?
Yeah, because he was hobbling off the field.
Hammy. Yeah, it was hammy. Yeah, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And actually, I can tell you what it was. No, I can't because it's not there. Never mind.
His leg was involved and it wasn't good. I mean, it did not look good. And the fact that he's on the 6-gamer kind of tells you, things did not go well.
Yeah, David Vereen was also signed to the Alouettes. He's out of Newbury College, and he's a defensive back out and is being added to the practice roster. So, next man up for a lot of these guys, Cliff. I will admit. So it's needless to say, it's Danny's doing what he needs to do in order to keep this team going and be able to give Coach Moss the players that he needs, despite who may go down or who may get injured.
And let's not forget, too, there's a lot of ex-Stampeders that are a part of the Alouettes now that will be facing their former teammates for the first time. Isaac Adiemi Berglund, Derek Wigan, Titus Wall. I mean, that's... did I miss anyone? Deontay Ruffin, sorry. He was also a former Stampeder. Although I think Ruffin, did play... Or was he... No, I don't think he played. I don't think he played against Calgary last year. So yeah, this might be the first time for him as well. But yeah, a few former Stampeders. Say what you would. Like, it's interesting that Calgary didn't decide to keep these guys for whatever reason, and then Montreal decided, okay, yeah, we kind of like the cut of their jib, so let's put them out there. And look, they've been absolutely outstanding. As I talked about, Berglund has been a beast, an absolute beast. Derek Wigan too, no slouch either. Titus Wall was added recently to the lineup. Has not looked out of place thus far, and I think those guys too will be motivated as well to face their former teammates and just give them a little reminder of who what they used to have over there in Calgary, and now it's here in Montreal. So I think that's going to be another very interesting wrinkle of this game on Saturday.
Exactly. Also, another thing too, as reported by Joey Alfieri today, Wes Sutton's back on the practice field this week, Cliff. Obviously, he's been on the 6-game injury list since the start of the season, and very similar to how a lot of these players are. They are able to practice a week prior to them being activated. He is eligible to be activated after the bye week.
Fantastic, and that's just that you want. That's what you want to see. I mean, yes, it's not like the Alouettes have suffered not having Wesley Sutton in the lineup, but knowing that he's going to be coming back and knowing what a phenomenal player he is, just it's simply a case of the rich getting richer again. I mean, the Alouettes have obviously done very well without him, but he's still very much an integral part of the secondary and definitely someone that, again, given the opportunity, can be an absolute nightmare for opposing quarterbacks. So I'm excited to see Wesley Sutton back in the lineup. I know Alouettes fans will be very excited to see him again, but again, it really does speak to just how this defense is running. That I would say we haven't missed him per se, but it's not like this team has suffered because Wesley Sutton's been on the 6-game list.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw it, and I forgot to mention it to you during our pregame meeting, but TSN actually has been running a series clip that's called the Butterfly Effect, and they had one recently when it came to Eric Lindros and how he basically, Eric Lindros led to the Colorado Avalanche winning the Grey Cup, their very first Grey Cup after the first year moving from Quebec.
Stanley Cup.
Stanley Cup. Yeah, see what happened on my head.
Look, we've already had one American team win the Grey Cup. I mean, I think that's one too many.
I know. But they also just put one out just today it was a couple of hours before we started broadcasting about the Alouettes and how U2, the group, not you, Cliff, not you, also Cliff, but
clarify that.
I know how the group U2 led to the Alouettes dynasty. Mm-hmm. So, and I think it was Dave Naylor. I think it's Dave Naylor who's doing the voiceover, if I'm not mistaken. But it's about a 9-minute watch over on TSN's YouTube page. But Alouettes fans and fans across the CFL, go ahead and watch it because it's I don't, the newer fans today, Cliff, I think forget. I mean, remember, we just a couple of years ago, we just, I think it was 2 years ago, we passed the 25th anniversary of the YouTube game. I mean, and a lot of the newer fans now don't know anything about it. What better way? These 9 minutes, it works. It works into the annals, into the lore of this Montreal Alouettes franchise.
Yeah, and after watching that, folks, if you didn't know about this before, about how YouTube playing a concert at Olympic Stadium basically revitalized the Alouettes franchise in a very, well, you get to see how basically it all came to be. Then come back to the Alouettes Flightdeck and listen to our interview a couple of years ago with Mark Waitman as we talked about this infamous U2 game, how it all came to be. And he gave us some great insight as to the goings-on behind the scenes. I mean, this game was put together on a wing and a prayer, pretty much. And even the day of, just stuff getting done at the very, literally down to the wire for this playoff game to go off. And ultimately changed the course of history. I mean, I will go as far as to say, if this game didn't happen at Percival Molson Stadium, we would not be here right now. The Montreal Alouettes would not be here right now. We would not be talking about the reigning, defending, undisputed Grey Cup champion Montreal Alouettes. I mean, simply put, this team probably wouldn't be this team as we know it today would not exist because of that game that sort of got the ball rolling in the direction where it's going now to where we are today. So yes, definitely check that out to get a quick, I guess a Cole's Notes version of the history of it. Because I mean, we could talk about it for hours about how that one game led to revitalization of Percival Molson Stadium, of how this roster came to be, and how the Montreal Alouettes ended up becoming essentially the model franchise for the Canadian Football League into the 2000s and beyond. And yeah, definitely go give this a watch. And then, yeah, come back and listen to our interview with Mark Whiteman talking about the U2 game, because that too will help flesh out a lot of that story as well.
And if you're wondering, just so you know, it was in our seventh season back in 2022. It was season 7, episode 32. It was a special episode that we had done because of the 25th anniversary. But as Cliff said, there's so much insider information that we got that I don't think, unless you were there as part of the Alouettes franchise, I don't know if you actually knew any of this information. And it's just to see the photos of what Percival Molson used to look like versus what it is now, Cliff, night and day. Night and day.
What a difference 25 years makes. But I digress.
No
I mean, it's I can't explain to you folks enough just how you really had to be there. Just the way everything sort of came together, like literally within days, it felt like. I don't remember the exact timeline, but it really felt like they had days to turn a decrepit looking Molson Stadium into at least a passable football facility for at least one game. And just based off the roaring success of that one game, how it was sold out, how fans flocked to the stadium, no pun intended, and just fell back in love with football, open air football, as opposed to being in the cavernous, cold Olympic Stadium where
where they were
teams
in dire straits,
where teams go to die, essentially.
Yeah.
Because U2 stood their ground and wanted to play their concert at Olympic Stadium as they had scheduled for. Montreal, the Alouettes organization had to scramble, had to make something happen because they were involved in a playoff game. Ended up back at Percival Molson Stadium, and the rest, as they say, is history. So yes, by all means, go check that out. Check out our interview with Mark Whiteman talking about that. I mean, it really is a fascinating note in Alouettes history.
I completely agree with you. Don't forget, we will be back on Wednesday to talk about the matchup with the Calgary Stampeders. But also stay tuned to all of our socials for any information that may break, and also stay tuned for the notice for when we're going to be going live for Flightdeck Live post game between the Alouettes and the Calgary Stampeders from Percival Molson Stadium. Yep. So, Cliff Dew, good to see you, buddy. I'll go have a swim for you tomorrow because I don't think I'm going to go out in the dark right now.
Oh, come on. Where's your sense of adventure?
No.
There's no fireflies there? Like there's no lanterns to light the way for you?
No, unfortunately. Maybe if I had 23,000 fireflies, lighting my way, maybe I would.
Well, I think, unfortunately, you're going to have to go to Percival Molson Stadium to even try to replicate that. So, okay, then get your swim on tomorrow, I suppose. But definitely enjoy the rest of your relaxation. Enjoy Tremblant, because, as I said before, it is truly a fantastic place to just go and chill. So,
yeah, I agree with you, Jude. So we'll be seeing you guys next week, and we appreciate everybody who joined us for the pod. So for everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on Final Approach.